If you're looking at exercise choices thinking you want cardio for fat loss, let's break that down, girlfriend. In this episode, I'm going to share where that myth, that cardio for fat loss myth, came from and why that myth still exists. What happens when your logical mind shuts off and your emotional one takes over? What you really want when you probably head for more cardio, and where seeking more cardio for fat loss actually backfires on you, and how cardio for fat loss, especially of the endurance type, backfires. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns, and hopefully we do a whole lot more inspiration here as well, so that you can have the energy and the vitality that you want, need, and deserve in this second and better half. So let's dive in. I want to let you know, though, if you're listening when this episode is released, we are in the final days of registration for Stronger. It's a 12-week strength training program designed for women in menopause and beyond, based and featured as subjects women who are in menopause, because you're not a mouse, you're not a man, and you're not even a young woman. Your hormones, your body composition, and metabolism are all very different and unique. And we'll talk a little bit today about how your socialization is also unique. So, Stronger is sponsoring this episode, and you have just a few more days to get in. If, however, you're listening to this after the fact, there's always a notifications list if you've missed it, but truly, I am not one to wish that you would wait on the free throw line. I really want you lifting weights now. 3 more months or 2 more, even if it's that when you get to this podcast and happen to be listening, is too long, especially if you haven't been doing enough or something during the pandemic. So there you have it. Start lifting. All right. The cardio for fat loss myth and other menopause fairy tales. So you kind of have the good, strong hint of where this one is going. In this episode, I promised I would share where this myth came from. And here it is. There still exists this more calories burned during cardio than weight training. Truth. That's a truth. I can't deny that. And it's absolutely true. Let's say you and I have 30 minutes. You go to cardio, I go to strength training, and really it's going to be about the same effort. You're going to win in terms of calorie burning, whether you go for a walk, you jump on the Stairmaster and go all out, or you're somewhere in the middle on your elliptical trainer or a bike. Cardio is still going to burn more calories in the moment. But what we're not factoring into that equation is that is not the most important thing. It really does not come back out to what has the most calories is either the best or the worst for you. And I throw that in there because we can be standing looking at what are our choices for dinner. And we could be choosing the iceberg lettuce, or we could be choosing the fat slab of juicy salmon with protein and healthy fat in it, and yet much higher in calories than that iceberg lettuce. But which one is better for you ultimately? Well, I think I've hinted at which answer you should pick. So I'll leave you to that. But in terms of exercise, we've always thought, which exercise burns the most calories? That's the one I want to do, right? And that, of course, we equate to will help us lose the most weight. But it's not true if you consider hormones. We've got to be thinking about what is the status of our hormones. So, yes, there is truth in the fact that you'll burn more calories, most likely, doing cardio than you will weight training. But that follows the calories in, calories out myth. If you stop right there and you don't go deeper to the statement and the truth that hormones, not calories, determine what happens to the calories you eat and or the calories you burn. You can exercise a lot. And in fact, if you do, potentially you will gain weight. It's called cortisol weight. And it happens to a lot of women at midlife, even if it never happened before that. Right about at that last stages of perimenopause, early stages of postmenopause, when hormones are really dramatically changing, your body is more prone to the negative effects of stress. And when you have high levels of stress, therefore cortisol, your body can be only in fat storage mode. And it can't be fat storing and fat burning. It only does one. Not great news, right? So, why does this myth still exist? Because this myth of more calories and the more calories I burn in cardio, that must be better for fat burning. I mean, that came from the 80s. Why is it still out there? If I'm saying it, I'm certainly not the only fitness and health professional in the world who's talking about it. However, there are a lot of holes and flaws still in our system in any industry. And in the fitness industry, for sure, we've got to start admitting that we were wrong to make position statements and guidelines based on men and women of all ages and ability levels. They're lumped into those statements about how much exercise we should be doing, how frequently we should be doing it, how long and how hard we should be working when we're doing it. Position statements don't necessarily stand out for, okay, young athletic males in their 20s, what should they be doing? As opposed to, say, 50 something women going through menopause, or 70 something women who have lost a little bit more muscle and bone density. And what should they be doing? We don't have position statements that exist like that, that are that diverse. That is where you hope personal trainers come in. However, there is also a diverse amount of certifications and qualifications for not only getting the certification in the first place, that might be a weekend certificate. I went to a weekend workshop, I did it, I passed, I paid money, I got the certificate. Maybe there's a quiz at the end. And it could be I order a book. Excuse me. I order a book. I study the book. Maybe I take a course, a study course. Then I take the test online and I pass. Does that mean I'm qualified to be a personal trainer? As what is called a subject matter expert for the American Council on Exercise, one of the largest certifying bodies and sister organization to IDEA Health and Fitness Connection, which is the members area or continuing education site. There's a problem with certifications and qualifications, and that is this, that I could be taking a certification titled medical exercise specialist, which in fact I have that one. But in order to renew my certification annually, or it's an actually 2-year period, I have to take X amount of continuing education credits. But oddly enough, you might be interested in knowing that they don't have to be for any special populations that I might be working with. For instance, you. So they don't have to be on hormone balancing or endocrinology and exercise. They don't have to be if I were working specifically with cancer patients or with women who have fibromyalgia or people who have Parkinson's disease. If that might be who my niche is, I don't have anything or anybody governing me telling me that's what I should be taking my continuing education credits in. So I could earn my continuing education credits in how to write better social media posts. I could take that continuing education in how to use uh, exercise discs or a TRX or a medicine ball creatively. 99 ways to use a resistor ball. It's really up to the trainer to do their own due diligence so they feel educated and qualified to work with their clients. And it's up to really to you to ask the right kinds of questions of the people that you're trusting with your health and your fitness. So those are part of the reasons why those myths continue to exist, because the qualifications for becoming a trainer or health coach, really, I've painted to you pictures of when people do get certifications, but anyone out there can call themselves a trainer, unlike a doctor or a lawyer, but anyone can call themselves a health coach. And it's up to you, the consumer, to call them on it. So, how much studying have they done? How qualified are they? Some of those myths continue because not all that much education goes into the background of personal trainers and or health coaches unless you've done your homework, dear consumer. Why does this myth still exist? Another few reasons here is, well, doctors still give this advice. They will still say, exercise more, eat less. And, in part, they may be right. However, without asking details about each of their patients, this is actually quite wrong. And it is certainly wrong for women who are in menopause. Most women I've worked with over 37 years, after group fitness ran its course, and probably it's been 33, 34 years since I've been personal training. Really, I was doing it before many at all in the Midwest were. And I've noticed that most women are in more trouble because they eat too little than eat too much. They're slowing down and shutting down their metabolism all the time, trying to exercise more, which only confuses their metabolism. That's one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And that's a vehicle that goes nowhere. Doctors also have very little nutrition and very little exercise training. So when they say go and exercise, they don't know what they don't know. Unless that doctor is an avid exerciser and they only know their own needs, wants, and desires, they don't necessarily know the needs, wants, and desires of each of their patients. Trainers are still giving this advice. I gave you that and gave you the reasons why that's probably true. And the advice isn't all wrong, but without specifics, without specifically knowing that there is or there isn't hormone balance, a simple calories in, calories out equation won't work. We've got to have quality calories. We've got to have a good hormone balance. And there is proof, there are studies that show you can eat about 350 calories more a day if you're eating the right kind of calories than if you're eating a poor quality of calories. That disproves the whole theory of calories in, calories out is what it absolutely takes to lose weight. So in those studies, people did lose weight or maintained by eating more calories. What happens when your logical mind shuts off and your emotional one takes over? And when does this happen? Well, it happens when you could be listening. Maybe you're sitting commuting. Maybe you're going for a walk with me. Pick it up a little bit. Wait. But also, I want you to be thinking, what you're doing hasn't been working. And if you've ever been in that position, but found it really hard to give up, wasn't what wasn't working, that is the challenge that we all face. Logically, your mind says, yes, I need to stop doing this. My mind every morning argues with me. Every day I say, I really need I should just give up coffee completely. I don't need this. It's wreaking havoc with my cortisol level. I know it is. But every morning I have the argument with myself, and myself that gets the mug out of the cabinet wins a lot, right? And this is rather embarrassing, but it's true. So we also have this thing, and why your emotional self takes over is we get very used to thinking about ourselves in the way we've always thought of ourselves. We get very comfortable with a certain body of knowledge and certain habits that we have, even though we have all the proof in the world that they are not working for us. It's as if somehow we think miraculously we're going to start getting different results by doing the same thing. And I know we've all heard that's the definition of insanity. So I won't repeat that cliche, at least again, right? But we do get very used to our very comfortable habits. So even small changes may be a way to help. When you get up in the morning, I bet if you do, like I do, you have a cup of coffee. You probably right now have your coffee maker or my mixer for my matcha tea to foam it up is sitting in the same place on the counter. Even moving that to a different place in the kitchen will make me think about it differently, make decisions twice. When you go and sit down with that cup of coffee, you probably have a seat where you sit. Maybe it's at the table, maybe it's on a couch or a favorite chair, but wherever it is, I bet it's very similar every day. Try sitting somewhere else. I did this recently and I do it frequently. And, unfortunately, I don't do it daily. Like I'm not sitting one place on Monday and another place on Tuesday. But I used to always like go back and I would sit on my bed and, have my drink, my coffee by the nightstand, and I'd work on my computer sitting up in bed. I stopped doing that and I started coming out to the living room and I would open the shades up so that the sun comes up and I would come up with it and see it. And just it changed my frame of mind. So it kind of gave me a different perspective on the day. I kind of worn that one out. I need to change again. But even that kind of a little thing, driving a different route to the grocery store, doing something different. I like to go to the same trailhead that's really close by my house, but going the same way around every time causes you to think, okay, it's like 15 minutes in, I should be here, I should be here, I should be here. And you want to break those kinds of habits and be like exploring, like, I'm not sure how much longer it's going to take me to finish and be in that place because that's where creativity happens. It's where a way to change your mind around certain things like this will be possible. So, what you really want when you want more cardio, now this is me really stepping out on a limb, supposing that I know what you want. But here's what I suspect is true for you and for me, because I kind of crave those Sunday mornings when I used to go to the gym all by myself. And my husband and I would kind of tag team. Like he would go do his workout. Sometimes it was in the basement, he'd lift weights at home. And sometimes he would go out and go for a run. And then I would do it later. He liked to hang out, relax in the morning, and read the paper. And I preferred to get up and go to the gym. And I would go, and my son was at home with dad. So it was like, this is so great, right? I don't have to worry. I've got a kid in the nursery who might cry, or, my time is going to be up. It was free time. And I would go and work out and, do a little bit longer one and read a magazine. And that's what I crave, the freedom, not necessarily the 45 or 60 minutes of cardio, the freedom and the ability to talk with somebody else next to me or to not talk, whatever I wanted to do. But I think it is that the days when you have an hour to spend, you read a magazine, you enjoyed yourself, you let your mind wander, but your problems were smaller. We weren't so connected all the time. We literally went to the phone or the gym without our phones, right? We didn't have to carry them along. So think about that for yourself. If you're still kind of defaulting to cardio, is it that? Because you actually can't check out quite so much in strength training. There's truth to that. However, it is a different kind of meditation because you can't completely check out. You have to think about what you're doing in your sets in the order of the exercises, especially if it's new to you. but it does cause you to focus, much like yoga, on the pose, on the breathing, on the moving and the flowing from this to that. You cannot be doing the grocery list. You can't be trying to solve the world's problems. Your stressors leave you a bit while you're doing those kinds of things, and that's a good thing. So here's where seeking more cardio for fat loss actually backfires on you. No kidding. Makes you fatter. So, muscle breakdown. It occurs due to a lack of estrogen. Just kind of welcome to the party, honey. You're in midlife, you're at the end of perimenopause, beginning of postmenopause. You have less estrogen. So, unless you do hormone replacement, you're definitely losing muscle faster. And even if you do have hormone replacement, you probably had a little period in there. You had a gap stop where you did lose it because you had to test and qualify for needing to have that HRT. So there has been that for you. So here's what happens. Estrogen in your body actually helps to stimulate muscle production and muscle maintenance. And so when estrogen declines, we have to find that stimulus somewhere else. Heavy weight training will do it. Cardiovascular exercise will not do it. Cardiovascular exercise without the adequate hormones, and even so, continues to further break down your muscle. And in part, it's due to greater increase in cortisol. So, some amount of cardio is okay. Low to moderate level of cardio, almost short, moderate, even longer are okay. And you'll get feedback. Your body gives you data every day. If you have more energy, hello, it's working. If you don't, you want to take a nap right after the exercise, especially, it's not working. You will not get stronger. You will not get thinner. You will not start thinking more clearly. You have to rest if that's the case. But also, high intensity exercise is valuable. If your hormone status is telling you, yes, you're ready for that, short amounts of high intensity exercise is good. We'll talk a little bit about what's not good in terms of cardio, but it can't be only cardio and it certainly can't be always cardio. How does cardio for fat loss, especially of the endurance type, backfires? And I want to qualify this of the endurance type. So I'm going to ask you to imagine something because I'm talking about zone two. Zone two is kind of your endurance, your all day pace, where if you are a jogger, you recognize this feeling. If you're not, just hold with me a minute here. But if you're a jogger, you go out, you warm up, you do your run, and then after about 10 minutes, you're just on cruise control. You're just kind of ambling along at the same speed, letting your mind wander. You're loving it. And then you're finished with your jog. And great, right? That's endurance pace. If you overdo that, that can be problematic. Meaning more than 60 minutes and definitely 75 is really that threshold where your cortisol then afterward does not come down. It continues to rise. And that means you're in fat storage mode all day, even after exercise. It didn't help you, but that quote unquote burning calories actually didn't help you. And I've been a victim of this, so trust me. And I say victim tongue in cheek because I knew what I was doing, but I was already so far in, I had to see it through. And this was in 2019. So I had a lot of other stressors that year. I had mold in the house I lived in, and just uh, Christmas, actually, day before Christmas or so. And it took about 3 months, little over, to get my house put back together. While it was all torn up, I was exposed to the mold. Yet, I mean, there was no barrier really between the upstairs and the downstairs, and it was kind of a hot mess, and it was very stressful. So a lot of noise in the house while I was trying to work, and then I realized I was still getting sick. I tested the house myself on my own dime, realized there's still mold there. Landlord not willing to do anything, said, you should move. I had 5 weeks before my lease was up. And so I had to find something really fast. Hence, I landed in Scottsdale. Total fluke. Never intended in my life to move to Scottsdale. But here I am. And that came all in a rapid flurry, and then some personal relationship things fell apart as well. Finances got a little dicey that same year. And all the while, I'm training for this triathlon, right? So lots and lots of stressors, all of that, especially at the time you're in menopause, not a good combination, right? Now, in another year, any one of those by themselves probably could have bounced back. I'm pretty resilient, but all of them piling up gets to be that was a bit much. Couldn't take it. And although I outwardly said, yeah, yeah, I'm okay, I got this. And it was tough, but my body showed me how tough it was. So that, 10 extra pounds while training for an Ironman, I mean, that doesn't really happen to a lot of people, not on purpose. Okay. So here's the deal. If you are already tired and you're trying to do that kind of endurance workout, you're not sleeping well, you already have inflammation in your body, or like me, you have multiple stressors. So I couldn't say I was already tired or I wasn't sleeping. I was sleeping well. I couldn't say I had inflammation, but I had a lot of stressors happening all at once. You will make it worse, much worse, as you try to do more cardio to get the fat off that's coming on because of the stressors. It makes it worse. And zone 2 often becomes zone 3. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So hang on to that thought for a moment. Your body composition will change negatively. It will be negatively impacted, meaning you'll be fatter, right? When you lose muscle, it's by default that, okay, if you weighed the same but you lose muscle, what do you have? A greater percent of body fat. But you will also be slowing your metabolism because of the lack of muscle, and ultimately you will have even more fat. So when it is appropriate for you, that low to moderate activity that I talked about, especially for women in postmenopause, is important as a needle mover. That means go out for a walk. So last year, around the time, about right now, as I record this anyway, the pandemic was really hitting. And I think a lot of us were just like, what is this? And then, suddenly inside our homes by ourselves. And, I started doing a lot of walking. A lot of people did. And it was nice to be outside and wave at people on the sidewalks. It was crowded out there almost. But I started walking, about 4 miles a day, maybe 2 in the morning and 2 at night. I wasn't going to the gym anymore. I stopped that. And, and yes, I go to the gym. Even though I work out at home, I make the videos from my home. This is my home, literally my home office, my home gym, my home everything. So to get out is probably pretty important for me so that I know how to behave and, mind my own manners in public. It's a good thing. And never in 37 years until I moved to Scottsdale about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, I guess now, did I not have a gym or four, that I could walk into anytime because I managed them or, taught at the university or, managed trainers in those facilities. And so it's such a strange thing to, oh my gosh, I have to buy a membership. I don't have a gym. It's weird. Um, but it was good for me to have a home gym for temporarily. But you also want to, know that women in perimenopause, so that low to moderate exercise, getting out, going for those walks, can be great post-menopause. But perimenopause, if you're suffering from fatigue or struggling to sleep and you've got hot flashes, night sweats, keeping you awake, the extra exercise, even low to moderate, potentially is just like pushing you over the edge. So if it's making you more exhausted, just stop. It'll be your time, but maybe not right now. So strength training, whether you are in perimenopause or postmenopause, though, should move into first position. It is your number one priority. High intensity interval training in small doses is also important for both peri and postmenopause. When the time is right, your hormone status says, okay, you're good. But moderate exercise is the problem. That was a recommendation born in the late 80s. And in fact, it should have stayed and died there, but it did not. It's much more of a problem than a solution. And I talked a lot more about this at the beginning of the pandemic because, everybody was looking at, what do we do for exercise and boosting our immunity? And exercise has always been something that people knew boosted immunity. However, it's not moderate. It's actually moderate amounts of low to moderate exercise or of high intensity exercise. But we skip that middle dirty ground. And here's why. So, whether you're walking or commuting, I want you to imagine an equilateral triangle or a pyramid and divide that. So imagine you're going to draw lines on it, horizontal lines, to divide it into 5 different zones of equal height. So it's just nice and pretty like a rainbow. And think of it in color. The bottom is the largest, right? That's your activities of daily life, like just getting up and down and out of bed and getting the laundry and folding the clothes and, doing the things we have to do. Zone 2 is that endurance layer. That's that go out for a jog, I get it at a cruise and I hold it there and then I stop when I'm done. It's, going for a long bike ride, being really comfortable doing, any level where, yes, you're breathing harder, you're exercising, but you're not breathing too hard. You can have a conversation. So go all the way to the top. That's zone 5, the peak. So that's like high intensity interval training that you cannot wait to be done. I mean, you're going to be able to do it for a very short amount of time because it's not comfortable. 4 is just below that, of course, but zone 3 is smack in the middle. So you've got the picture. 3 really has no description. But here's what happens. So in your head, if they're all a different color, you can see this now like a rainbow, right? So zone 1 and zone 2, they have a purpose. Like zone 1, we should be able to have energy doing those things all day and not be wiped out at the end of the day. Zone 2 is building up your endurance, cardiovascular endurance, even a little muscular endurance in doing repeated activities like swimming or biking or running. Zone 4 and 5 definitely have a purpose. That's to really bump up your cardiovascular level, your VO2 max, your ability to carry oxygen to your muscles and all systems in your body. And yet, zone 3 is what I call no benefits zone. It's usually a very lazy effort at an interval. Like you're really not doing interval training, you're just trying to pretend you are, or it's a drift. We call it cardiac drift. Now, that's not to be mistaken as heart attack, right? Cardiac drift means that you're doing a zone 2 workout, really, but you're now in zone 3 because the more you keep going, the longer you keep going, the more tired you get, the more dehydrated you are, the more you're going to find your heart rate rising. Now you're in zone 3, but not because we intended to, not because we want you to, because you're going to get in more shape there, because you're not, but it's because you're just slipping into it. So you don't want actually to be there unless the only people who really need to do that are people who are training for it like a half marathon. That distance, like not super, super long, not short. I purposely for clients keep who are doing that observing heart rate and drinking and eating and slowing down, in fact, to complete workouts in specific time zones or specific heart rate training zones to accomplish the fitness level that we want to get them to. But zone 3, if you're just moving along this endurance and you let your heart rate creep up there, you're not getting the training effect that you actually want. It's just kind of sloppy seconds. So if you haven't ever worked with a one-on-one coach like that, who focused on your fitness level instead of a weight loss goal, you potentially haven't experienced this. And here's the news. If you focus on fitness, on a fitness goal, a performance goal, you will have more optimal body composition. But it's not always the case when you focus on weight. Often you experience frustration because you attract more weight. Now, this may sound really woo woo to somebody listening, Is that somewhat psychological? I think a lot of it is psychological, but we get what we attract, what we focus on. And if you focus on weight loss, however, your brain, the mind, doesn't grasp a negative. It only hears weight. So you're attracting more weight. You can't really successfully and happily lose weight by focusing on weight. You want to focus on what are the things I want to do? How do I want to live? How do I want to feel? How do I want to treat my body? If those are the things that you're focusing on, and that's the way you live your everyday, you will reap the rewards of that. Now, you might have to do a little homework and figure out what it is that you actually need to do. What do I need to eat? What do I not need to eat? What's not agreeing with my body so far or right now? I have always preferred clients with goals, things they want to do, whether it's races or vacations or adventures, to those who just want weight loss. Why? Because they're most successful. So we create those kinds of goals. Like, we get moving, we get outdoors, we start doing things and dreaming about more things that we want to do next. That's the real secret. Let me shift for a moment away from cardio for fat loss to strength training. Strength, on the other hand of cardio, does not have the negative impact on cortisol. And part of that is because your strength workouts are not going to risk going too long. We have built in rest. So you do repetitions in a set. You rest after a set, or you move on at least to putting down the weights, picking up other weights to do a different set, different body part. In fact, the workouts like those that are in my Stronger program, they're about 30 to 40 minutes average. Some are shorter. You don't have those long 60-minute, 75-minute workouts that are exhausting and potentially push you into cortisol if it's endurance. It's quality. Accepting that quality movement, not quantity movement, is the most important and crucial to body composition change. Lift weights and increase lean muscle tissue. Increase lean muscle tissue, and you will increase metabolism. Increase metabolism, and you will increase energy expenditure around the clock. That's the long-term plan to fat loss that puts any plan of cardio for fat loss to shame. I'd love to hear from you. Many of you have already shared with me how you have shifted from doing more cardio to doing less of it, to doing more weight training. And in doing so, you've gained energy and you've lost a few pounds, but most importantly, lost a few inches and gained body confidence. So, what about you? What's your story? I'd love to hear from you. You can add your comments or questions below the show link today. That'll be at flipping50.com/cardio for fat loss. What are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 today. And if you're still looking for the strength training substitution for all that cardio that's not working, Stronger's open, but just for a couple more days.